I'm Ryan Newman, and since I started with Indiana Donor Network and Driven to Save Lives, I found out that some people think that they can't be an organ donor. The truth is, anyone can sign up to be an organ donor.
Anyone?
Anyone?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyone can sign up to be an organ donor. So don't count yourself out because somebody's counting on you. Go to driventosavelives.org and sign up today.
But my heart's going to you, Ryan.
Love that shirt.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Another season of iRacing action coming to you here on the National Racing Network. Tonight it will be the Stars and Cars of the iRacing Silver Crown Cup coming to you from their traditional season opening venue, the Iowa Speedway, located in Newton, Iowa, not too far to the east of the capital city, Des Moines. Elio Castro-Neves holds the track record here at a 17.2283 second lap. Crazy fast in an IndyCar. Not quite the speeds we're going to see here tonight, but should be a pretty darn good show either way. My name is Chris Graham, joined in the booth, as always, by Mr. Patrick Byrne. And I'll tell you what here, Bizzle, I think we're going to get a really good show out of these guys. A familiar racetrack, but that doesn't mean that we're going to see kind of the same old here, because the weather has changed. iRacing as a whole has changed.
Yes, just driving anything feels so much more dynamic, especially as the cloud cover changes. We talked about it before where, the clouds might cover some billboards or something and a little bit of the track would get cooler. Now the track is very dynamic. They were talking about it in practice. Between lap 1 and lap 10 of a run, you're on 2 different racetracks now, depending on how the wind moves. So I can't wait to see how many lines and how many different lead changes we're going to get just with people adapting to the weather change.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that is going on here all at one clip. As Derek Love is who we're following along with. He is third quick on the board. Rich Foreman currently at the top of the charts at a 21.559. River Hayes second quick, followed by Derek Love. Second lap starting to come onto the board. River Hayes, lap number 2, will not improve. D-Love also going to stay third quick. Jeffrey Stanton just finishing up his qualification run. Let's pick up the number 14 of Vic Aldrich, finishing his qualification run as well. Let's see who else we have out here. Let's pick up, we'll pick up Scott Schroeder. Oh, as he's up in the fence in the Boomers button boxes, number 16. That's not what you want to see. James Watson in the 39, making his way out onto the speedway. Rich Foreman still at the top of the speed charts here with a very quick lap. Lap number 1 for James Watson going to be a 24.551. And that lap does not score. We'll see what lap number 2 is going to look like here for Watson. Also on the speedway now, Josh Batista and Thomas Lewandowski down over the start-finish line. Lap number 2 is in the books for Watson, and it will be good enough for third quick. 21.745. Now we'll take a look at the red Ream Rocket, that number 20 of Josh Batista. I'm interested here, Bizzle. This is the first that I'm seeing this from some of the outside cameras. We may have to rebuild all of our cameras based on some of the dynamic track stuff, because we're getting some banding and stuff, it looks like, in the cars. That is something we see. It's not your eyes going crazy over there in viewerland. As Josh Batista's first lap is going to be good for ninth quick at a 21.829. Thomas Lewandowski up to fifth quick on the board at a nice lap, 21.769.
Now, isn't it every time they update the tracks, they screw with the camera locations and mess with everything?
Yes. Basically, every time the tracks get updated, we get these huge changes and basically have to rebuild all of our camera packs. Not really a surprise that that would be happening here this time. Because this is we talked briefly about it, but this is a massive, massive update to the iRacing platform. I think it would be fair to say this is basically iRacing 2.0. Because even things like heat haze that you get off the cars and motion blur in the cameras is affected by the weather.
Yeah, obviously you're not going to get any heat haze or anything if it's not humid out and it's 60 degrees.
That is correct, but that is not the weather conditions that we have here today. Well, okay, so it's 66 degrees, but very, very humid, 91% humidity, 22 mile per hour winds out of the north, under cloudy skies, 74 degree track temperature. Field is getting themselves out onto the grid and ready to do battle here for 80 laps around the Iowa Speedway. And while they're getting ready to go, we will take a moment here and get you a look at tonight's starting lineup. On the pole for the first time in quite a while, the Rich Foreman photography number 7. Well, the car's number is 7. It's the 10 in timing and scoring. It is Rich Foreman, the official photographer of the United States Auto Club. Check out his socials. Absolutely incredible work. Puts out coffee table books, all sorts of stuff. Rich is absolutely a legend behind the lens. Starting on the outside of the front row will be the Team Watson Racing setups. Oh, I can't read the rest of the sponsor name, but Smith's number 81 of River Hayes. We'll get that info out of River at some point here. Only 47 thousandths of a second back. Row number 2, Josh Batista, the Red Ream Rocket. The car's number is 20. Timing and scoring, he'll be the 7. Lining up to his outside, the number 39, Team Watson Racing, National Racing Network, Martin Sports. Entry of James Watson. That car will be the number 5. Brandon Buckberger in the Dietz Farms, number 4. Out of the state of Illinois, lining up inside of row 3 to his outside in the Team Watson Racing setups. Martin Sports Dizzy V Designs, number 3. It is your defending champion, Thomas Lewandowski. Zach Evans out of North Carolina, lining up on the inside of row number 4 in the MeFi TWRS number 11 to his outside, the Street Side Classics number 1 of Derek Love. Row number 5, the National Racing Network, Team Watson Racing setup, ZAS Designs number 13 of Zach Scott Nicky, alongside of the Dizzy V Designs, Team Watson Racing setups number 98 of Vic Aldrich. That car will carry the 14 on your timing and scoring window. Row 6, the Napa Auto Parts, Rockwell, North Carolina, number 94, Jeffrey Stanton. That car will be the 6 in timing and scoring, alongside of the number 12, California's Tommy Toe. Laura Gerhardt, the Kibu number 9, inside of row 7, alongside of the Team Watson Racing setups number 17 of Nieje Camargo. Row number 8, Joseph Smith out of Texas in the number 8, and Stephen Protzman in the number 15. And all alone on row number 9 will be Scott Schroeder in the Team Watson Racing setups, but Boomer Button Boxes, number 16. 17 cars in this split, 33 in total on the entry list. And quite frankly, I'm looking forward to this one in a big way. Let's see if Rich Foreman can keep that 7 machine at the front of the field. Have a comment I will get to here in just a moment, but field is off of turn number 4. Green flag goes in the air. We are underway here in Iowa. Foreman backs out early in turn number 3. He's going to fall back to about the 6th position. It's going to be Josh Batista leading the field over the start-finish line to complete lap number 1. River Hayes, James Watson, Brandon Buckberger, and Thomas Lewandowski. The top 5 is Foreman's up into the wall in 1 and 2. Tough break for your pole sitter. Maybe an early end of the night for Rich Foreman. And now the question becomes who is going to lead up here at the front as we stay under green.
Very easily single file the whole way through here. Kind of surprised to see this, but I guess it is still very early in this race.
Yeah, very early in the race, and quite frankly, I think still a lot of feeling out process that these drivers have to do with the cars. They were talking about the fact that it was similar, but very much not the same as what they were used to. And quite frankly, I think they're going to spend a fair bit of time feeling these cars out. Going on board here with River Hayes. As James Watson looking up on that outside lane. And one of the things they were talking about a lot in the pre-race, Bizzle, was the fact that gear selection was going to be really, really important here.
Yeah, especially kind of just guessing what the weather was going to be with what you picked for your gear. If it was going to be a hotter, slicker racetrack, they were going to go with the taller gear to not wear the right rear as much. But if the track is a bit colder, you can get away with running a shorter gear and get the drive off the corner.
Yeah, and it was also sort of line dependent as well. We saw James Watson going around on the outside of the racetrack there. If you set the car up to run the outside lane, you potentially had a pretty distinct advantage. But if you were set up to run the high lane and you got trapped down low, you were going to be in trouble. Same was true if you were set up to run the low line and you got stuck on the outside. It was going to make life difficult as your race leader scrapes the wall exiting 4. And caution is out. Yellow flag on the speedway for the first time here tonight on lap number 8. Possibly trouble for Laura Gerhardt. Just up a little, up the outside, big, up on the wall. Oh, my goodness. That was a big ride for car number 9. Heck of a save by the 15 as Steven Protzman down into the grass. But Laura Gerhardt going to have some work to do here on pit lane. We'll come to the comments here quickly, and A Knight checking in saying, I would say 3.0 now. This is kind of iRacing version 3. I could possibly agree with that. The old sim was very kind of NASCAR 2004 season, just with different car models. Then you got the, air quotes, new tire model. That was the next big change. And then I guess the weather system would be change number 3.
Yeah, I definitely, I got in right around the time they did the dynamic tracks the first time. So I guess I only experienced iRacing 2.0, but that was still a huge change from basically everything I'd been watching and seeing from everyone else beforehand.
Yeah, it was, I guess the OG track was, like I said, it was very NASCAR 2004-ish. It was like a hybrid of
NASCAR 2003.
NASCAR 2003 mixed with Grand Prix Legends in a lot of ways. It was like the open wheel cars were very good from the beginning because of everything that Dave Kemmerer and the iRacing team had learned from Grand Prix Legends back in the Pyrrhus days before Sierra bought them out. Then you had, like you said, that new tire model was big. That was a huge, huge change. We're now on this. The Silver Crown car is on version 6 of the tire model. Most of the cars on the platform are now on version 7. And even that is a huge change from 6 to 7 was in terms of where the grip levels that you get and everything else. There's a lot going on with how the tire models were built here as iRacing is developed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we're at the point where the carcasses really move. Like, that was R-Factor's big thing, is the carcass is a living, dynamic thing, and that's where all of their development went to. And I will say, R-Factor 2 feels amazing to just drive and hot lap because of that. I'm not sure iRacing is there yet, but there's definitely been huge, huge strides in just tire work on iRacing, where when I first got onto service, felt like you had 4 big Flintstone rocks on each corner of the car. They were not dynamic at all. They didn't move at all. You couldn't feel them slip. It was just traction, and we flipped the splitch.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was one of those that literally the car went from gripped up and great to just terrible. And it's like there was no in between on it. So field is going to get ready to come back to green flag racing. Pace car is off of turn number 4. Josh Batista brings the field down. Green flag goes back in the air. Derek Love gets a fantastic jump. He's going to make a move looking inside. Zach Scott-Nicky also coming around Zach Evans. Follow this battle down to the back straightaway between Love and Buckberger. And now Jeffrey Stanton looking inside. It'll be 3 wide off to turn 1. Man, you can see Stanton get really twitchy there.
Yeah, and these cars are going to tighten up around this track as the run goes on. So they built a ton of loose into these machines. And, oh, man, looks like Lewandowski's in the wall all over the place, almost in front of Derek Love.
Yeah, big save there for Lewandowski, bouncing it off the outside safer barrier. And I'll tell you what, it's kind of surprised to not see a lot of damage there. Stanton gets it up into the outside fence as well. Top 3 starting to check out here. Josh Batista ahead of James Watson and River Hayes. It's already almost 3/4 of a second between Batista and Watson. And there's a glaring example of iRacing has moved our camera positions.
I think the cam op was just afraid of heights and backed way up around away from the edge of the platform.
I would agree with that, other than all of the cameras that are mounted on top of the safer barrier are also just nowhere close to where they should be. They're kind of hanging out.
Not at all.
They're hanging out floating over top of the racetrack now. So I know what we'll be doing in our minimal amount of spare time. Buckberger around the outside of D-Love off of turn number 2. These guys talked a lot towards the end of last season about not necessarily beef with each other, but just the fact that anytime they were close, they were running into each other. A night like tonight, that can have a huge effect on really the season outcome. We talked with some of the drivers in the pre-race about the fact that the SOF means a lot. And tonight, it's a 35-31 strength of field. This is absolutely a must top 5 podium race if you want to have a shot at the championship.
Yeah, week 1 is always the highest strength of field of the year. It's almost like your New Year's resolution race at the first week of every season. Oh man, I'm going to run this and I'm going to run it every week, and then you don't show up after week 3, week 4. You miss week 5 and you're like, why run week 6? But week 1 is the week everybody shows up to.
Everybody shows up, and especially this season, we talked those changes. This is one of the first official races on the platform that has occurred after the changeover from week 13. So you go from all the kind of ridiculous stuff that iRacing puts together for the week 13 schedule, and now you're back to the officials. That I always thought it was unique about the Silver Crowns. There's only, I think, one race potentially before this one. Not a lot of practice time. You almost have to do your practicing the week before, after you run the SOF on Monday night.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how it is year-round with these guys. They put up their own practice sessions. they're building setups. Now, these cars don't get updated very often, so setups from 3-4 years ago were still fairly good now. Now, with the weather change, I'm not sure that's going to be the case anymore.
That's a great point. Brandon Buckberger's talked about the fact that he's run Vinny Sansone's sets for a long, long time. Stuff that was the notebook may have just gone completely out the window, or at least you have to make more weather-specific changes. Taking a look at those conditions, track temp is already up to 75 degrees. Even under the cloudy skies, the humidity is dropping a little. That's going to change what lane works.
Are we in a derecho?
No, because you have to have rain for it to be a derecho, I think.
Oh. Maybe.
I think. If you're a weather person, correct me in the comments, please.
Where's Connor Baldwin when you need him the most?
Yeah, really. Connor Baldwin did a fantastic job building a lot of camera packs for us. And unfortunately, I think Connor's work is all going for naught at this point. Field has single filed out, and there is not a ton going on here. River Hayes getting around Jeffrey Stanton. Zach Evans and Zach Scott-Nicky continuing to battle towards the back of the pack. We'll call it the mid-pack. This is the fight for the 8th and 9th position. Everybody else is, quite frankly, pretty well behaved at the moment. The only real battles we have going on outside of this one, everything's pretty tight here. Vic Aldrich and Joseph Smith battling for the 10th position. The AJ Camargo, Scott Schroeder just back behind these two. And we are not even to the halfway point yet. Josh Batista holding a 1-second lead over River Hayes. James Watson may be losing the handle on his race car a little bit. River Hayes coming past. Jeffrey Stanton has gotten past the 39. Now Brandon Buckberger coming through. We talked a lot about how when the car starts to get light as you burn the fuel off, the set is going to feel different. But now you also have a track temperature that's up to 76 degrees. The sun is very clearly out now over the racing surface. That could make the car go away, and if the cloud cover comes back late in the race, Watson could be super fast again.
Yeah, that's one thing that's going to be really fun, watching this track change during this race. Especially, the track could go the other way, too, and get super, super, super hot. And you could see a bunch of guys in the back of this field make their way up to the front, because that might be what their car is set up for.
Well, yeah, and you plan on actually, I think it was Zach Evans was talking about the fact that the car's just going to get tighter. And you're just going, on the weight jacker, you're going looser and looser and looser as the race goes on. That's not necessarily true depending on what the weather does. Now, if the sun stays out and it gets real slick as Lewandowski almost loops it off in turn 4. If the sun stays out for a while and the track gets really hot, now you're talking about it going slippery and you have to go the other way on that weight jacker.
Yeah, which is the whole reason the weight jacker was even put into these cars, is so they could adjust to those changing conditions.
Yeah, this car has a very brief real-world history. It ran from 2006 to 2008, I guess it was, as basically a replacement for the USAC Silver Crown cars, both the pavement and the dirt cars. USAC split them into 2 separate championships. these cars ran on the pavement. The dirt cars ran on the dirt. The pavement car got things like crush zones, sort of, a beefed up roll cage, and a lot of different things to make them suitable for 1.5 mile ovals. Never in a million years would I want to drive this car at some of those places, but in the real world, they ran Darlington, they ran Chicagoland in Kansas. It was almost like these were to be an undercard and another path that you could go from midgets to sprint cars to the Silver Crown car and then make the step into NASCAR.
Or IndyCar.
No, unfortunately, that window closed about 1987.
Oh, well, the direct window, but the door was closed, but the window was left cracked.
Oh,
If you were a USAC champion, you could get funding for a ride to run in the Indy 500.
Outside of Tony Stewart, nobody did it. That was the whole thing. I will pound this drum until he decides to hang it up. But Cody Swanson needs to be in an IndyCar at the 500. And he won't even get a look unless he brings enough money to fund the month, which you're talking $1 million plus at this point, just to get into a not good ride.
That's the problem with the local racing. It's just there's no money in it.
Yeah, it's always been the thing. Money has always been the limiting factor, but
What's the quote? You find a sponsor, you get a ride, and you run the Indy 500.
That's exactly right. You find a sponsor, you buy the ride, you pass the rookie test, and you run the Indy 500. The late, great Robin Miller. I don't think I have a button box that I can use of him.
We have that one on the button box.
Continuing to follow the battle here between Lewandowski and Love. Man alive, these guys are tight off the corner. Wow, what a twitch by Lewandowski. Oh my goodness. How about James Watson practically running the Harry Gant line around this place? All the way up towards the fence through 1 and 2, carried a ton of speed there. Derek Love up above that high dashed line as well. And you can see Thomas Lewandowski is struggling right now. Track temperature up to 82 degrees. I don't think these drivers were set up for this kind of temperature swing.
I don't believe so. I don't think the state of Iowa was set up for this kind of temperature swing.
Usually you have people yelling it's a twister when you get swings this big. That would be awesome. We get just random rain delays in iRacing. Starts raining at the oval, track cools off, you go under caution. Oh, it's Derek Love's hard into the outside wall. Big contact there. Lewandowski onto the grass to get away from it. Oh,
and
my.
they're still almost making contact.
Take a look at this one from a lap ago. We're going to keep our eye on Thomas Lewandowski here as Derek Love gets it up into the outside wall. Lewandowski twitches sideways practically onto the grass to make the save. My goodness. And the best part is both of them gave up almost no speed in that transaction.
No, kept it wide open and just sent it.
I'm just gonna put my foot on the floor and I'm not lifting till I see God or a checkered flag.
Andy Jankowiak with the quote
ever.
of the year. You're not missing anything elsewhere throughout the field, by the way. All the gaps are at least 0.3 of a second throughout the rest of the field. So we're going to keep our eye on these guys doing the battling. Only working lap number 52 of 80. Still 29 laps to go. And the car may be going away from Josh Batista ever so slightly. The gap is down from 1.2 seconds to now about 0.6 of a second as River Hayes is catching rapidly up onto Josh Batista. Somehow Jeffrey Stanton, with a practically junked front end to his race car, able to hold off Brandon Buckberger. Although we say that, if Buckberger's going to make the pass inside, almost little baby slide job there up off the quarter. Stanton going to try the crossover. Lewandowski and Watson also side by side in the battle for the 5th position. Good Lord, that car of Lewandowski is so twitchy on corner exit. Is that one of those situations, if you're Lewandowski, where you're saying, okay, I have to work the weight jacker, entry, middle, and exit of the corner?
No, it's just when you hold on for dear life and try and keep the bull pointed in the right direction.
He's doing a good job of it now, and a whole lot more than an 8-second ride, that's for sure. The gap at the front down to 0.4 of a second. We're going to stay here for now. Oh, man. Hold on. We got to go on board here with Thomas Lewandowski.
It's like we're breaking out of the Matrix when it does that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it is definitely a camera pack issue. You can see the twitch there. Exiting turn 2, but watch how twitchy this thing is. You actually see, it almost looks like the scene shifts. Well, he doesn't do it that time off the corner, but... It is definitely interesting watching these cars. You're actually seeing comers and goers as Derek Love again into the outside wall down the front stretch. Now Lewandowski going to work on Jeffrey Stanton. James Watson going to be right there to try to follow through, as we've got, I think, trouble for Josh Batista. Take a look at the NRN replay and see what happened to Batista's machine. Up off the corner. Adios, amigo. Josh Batista just disconnects out of the lead of the race.
Oh, that's brutal.
Absolute heartbreaker for Batista. Leads the first 57 laps. And now it's going to be River Hayes at the front of the field. Brandon Buckberger trying to chase him down. That'll promote Thomas Lewandowski up into a podium position. As if Lewandowski needs any help in scoring points in this series. Your champion from one season ago. And that just completely changes the complexion of this race. River Hayes is going to have to try to hold off Brandon Buckberger for another 16 laps this time by.
Buckberger's getting a little squirrely in second place there.
And that's something that it just will not happen in the real world. River Hayes went from being in chase the leader, you know, the greyhound chasing the stuffed rabbit on a stick, to being the stuffed rabbit on a stick instantly. That's a big mental switch for you, because you go from that chase mentality to, okay, who else is around me? And you're looking out the rear view mirror as much as you are, you know, looking out the front. Sidon is checking in saying it will if the leader drops out with an engine failure. The difference is you get a caution for the most part. They don't just flat disappear off the screen. You're within 4/10s and nothing. You just go.
It's called The Rapture. There's a whole book written about it.
Josh Batista is back on the racetrack, 7 laps behind the race leaders, as Lewandowski going to get around Brandon Buckberger for second. And now the leaders are going to have to contend with Vic Aldrich. Now, Vic's a good guy. He's going to move out of the way, but it doesn't mean that you don't kind of change the lineup a little bit, your quarter entry. It can throw you off ever so slightly, but we've gone from a dominant performance by Josh Batista to now 3 cars within a half second of the lead. Wrapping up a very nice lap 69 that has seen the field get tighter and tighter as they go. Trying to watch the back ends of these race cars, see who's getting looser as this show goes on. Track temperature up to a very warm 86 degrees, and the wind speed has picked up as well. That'll make a big difference as well. You start getting up in those 20-mile-an-hour winds. That's something that's just a completely different animal there.
Yeah, now these things, since they don't have wings, they don't have big sails on the front and rear of the car, it's not going to affect them nearly as much as it would maybe an Indy car or something. But still going to push these things around. These are not very heavy cars.
Yeah, a fair amount of power under those 358 cubic inch engines. Not quite as insane as the sprint cars we're going to see tomorrow night. Also here at the Iowa Speedway. Now, inside of 10 to go. Lewandowski trying to make the outside lane work on River Hayes. Flying Astro Bastards may need to go on a t-shirt.
That's pretty incredible.
Lewandowski easily clears River Hayes. In fact, Hayes going to have to do the work to fend off Brandon Buckberger. Now, these guys have about 1.9 seconds on James Watson. In fact, it's up to almost 2 seconds now. So it may be a safe-ish battle for the second and third position. But these guys are just going to have to be really smart down the stretch here. And sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do, Bizzle, as we see Buckberger looking 3 wide. Hayes slams the door close off a 4. Buckberger really starting to push. Hayes chops down on the racetrack, takes a little bit of the air off the nose as we're down to 3 to go here at the Iowa Speedway. Buckberger will be there inside this time. The bottom has not been the quick way around to this point in the race.
That line that Lewandowski's in, or no, that's River Hayes. That line that he is in is my favorite line around this track. Just that middle line, leave just enough room to get side by side at the bottom, but not enough to get momentum to get anywhere by you.
Now Hayes is going to move up the outside of the speedway as they come around. Josh Batista, big slide that time for Buckberger off of 4. White flag is out, 1 lap to go. Lewandowski holds the lead. The battle is between Hayes and Buckberger for the second position. Off of turn number 4, checkered flag goes in the air. Thomas Lewandowski gets the win. River Hayes holds on by thousands to get the second place finish over Brandon Buckberger in a spectacular finish. Lewandowski picks up the race win and says, adios, I'm out of here, I want no more. No mas, if you will. Definitely looked like these guys had an absolute handful tonight, and I am pretty excited to talk to our top 3 finishers here because this was a pretty big show here. And actually, I think we have our at least our couple of our top finishers anyway. We'll pick up Mr. Thomas Lewandowski, our race winner, and bring him up into the booth with us. And Thomas, congratulations on the win. I think with probably about 25 laps to go. I don't think you necessarily saw this as a potential race win, but congratulations. A hell of a drive tonight.
Yeah, I'm sweaty after that one. Yeah, I made the mistake early, and I got in the wall, and I lost all those spots. And I knew the setup would be good in the long run, but I fought real hard, with Derek and James and stuff, and it was all clean. And just kept, a little bit at a time, and got super lucky though when Josh, he's dropped out. I don't know how big of a lead he had over River, but I'm not sure. So if I would have got to him or not, but I'll take him how I can get him. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, great way to kick off a championship defense is a victory in a 35-31 SOF. But I got to ask you, how difficult was that car to drive? It looked like it was just crazy loose exiting turn 4.
Oh yeah, it was a handful to say the least. It was really windy in the server, and so they kind of made it unpredictable a little bit. I think that's what happened when I got in the wall. Is just picked up a push out of nowhere, and sometimes it would just get kind of like loose out of nowhere too. So I'm not sure if that was the wind shifting or what, but we had to definitely wheel it a few times.
Yeah, that's kind of putting it mildly, but man alive, just a fantastic show here from you tonight. Congratulations on picking up the win here. And before we let you go, make sure you get in all those big sponsor plugs and shout outs for us.
I just got to thank you guys and all, everyone over at the Drill Aisle, John, Marcus, Larry, Bob, Craig, those guys, make it happen, support me and stuff. So they were watching tonight. So.
Good stuff, man. Well, thank you much. We thank you for coming up into the booth, and congratulations on picking up the dub here tonight. I don't think we have our third place finisher, our second place finisher. So we'll talk to third place finisher tonight, Mr. Brandon Buckberger. And I tell you what, the car it looked good. It seemed like you weren't as loose as everybody else was, but what were you feeling behind the wheel?
Car was great. I just had the wrong gear, so I was struggling with that. I picked the wrong gear last minute, and it cost me a little bit going on the front stretch, but man, I could hold the bottom, I could hold the top. I mean, I was finding a grip up high. I don't know. I found some grip, and yeah, you're right. I was not loose. That thing was perfect and on a rail for me.
Now, the guys were talking about that a good bit in the pre-race discussions that we were listening in on. How big of a difference is that gear? I mean, I think they were talking, a 69 gear to an 84 gear, something like that. It doesn't seem like it's a ton, but it obviously made a huge difference here tonight.
Yeah, I went with an 84, and last season I went with a 69, and it should have flipped. I thought it was going to warm up more than it did with this new weather thing. I mean, we're all still trying to figure out what it does, and I thought it was going to get hotter. It got a little bit hotter there when the sun came out. You could feel it. I wasn't chipping as hard, but it was still chipping, and I just made the wrong gear. But, man, that thing was on rails on the bottom, and it's one of those things where, you get the 80 lap race, you need the 100. You get the 100, but you need the 80.
Yeah, so sometimes you're either you're kind of hosed one way or the other. But, man alive, Brandon, congratulations. A great show tonight here. Thank you very much for putting it on for us, and do all those sponsor plugs and shout-outs before we let you go.
Yeah, sure. So we donated $150 to Driven to Save Lives last year. We're going to do the same thing. If we hit over 100, we're going to double it again this season, so that's a good start. It's $5 in that pool. I want to thank the guys at Dienst Farm. I think we're going to roll out a new paint scheme with your help here, Chris. More of a Ross Chastain-looking scheme, like a Busch Light car, so that'll be cool. Looking forward to that. And everyone who's watching back at Dienst Farm, so I know Scotty, Bob, Nate, Madison, Swayze are all watching, so it was a good start of the season. I'm very happy with it.
All right, brother. Well, thank you much. We appreciate you coming to hang out with us here for a couple of minutes, and we'll go back to the live scenic views around the Iowa Speedway. And I'll tell you what, Bizzle, we got an interesting show tonight, and quite frankly, if we see similar weather conditions tomorrow night in the sprint cars, that race is going to be absolutely insane.
Yeah, sprint cars are going to be absolutely badass to watch. I can't wait to see how much those cars change with the weather, because those things were already unpredictable and insane to watch before. I can't wait to see them now.
Yeah, it is going to be a pretty wild ride, that is for sure. But looking forward to that one. We have the sprint cars coming back for another season here on the National Racing Network. That race will air tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Follow it up at 9:45 Eastern Daylight Time. The TNT Shock Series returns with a visit to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. That is going to be a wild show. I can't wait for that one. Coming up on Thursday night, the USF Pro Championships for the PM18s will kick off their 2024 Season 2 with a visit to Road Atlanta. Again, that is a 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time change. With the time change, basically the way it works in iRacing is everything works off of GMT time or universal time. So when we change the clocks, everything kind of shifts. So it puts everything back into the 9 o'clock hour for us up until November. And also coming up this weekend will be a great show. The Spec Corvette Series West Region making their first visit out to the Podium Club in Arizona. We will have doubleheader racing action coming up for you this Saturday and Sunday. Check the YouTube channel for your local bat time on those. With that, time for Bizzle and I to get the heck on out of here. Great show, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming to hang out with us, and you all as well. Great show, and for Bizzle and everybody else here at the National Racing Network that gets these shows on the air, my name is Chris Graham. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a great night, everybody.